Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We are at 8:30. We're going to go ahead and get the meeting started here. Welcome to the Conscious Contact Speaker Group of Alcoholics Anonymous. My name is Brian, and I'm an alcoholic. This is a one-hour speaker meeting that meets every Saturday at St. Paul's Lutheran Church, 301 North Main Street in Doylestown, PA. The food and the fellowship for this group starts at 8 o'clock, and the speaker comes on at 8:30. The business meeting for this group meets every Saturday, 7 p.m. to 7:30. Please feel free to come early and join us. The purpose of this group is to provide a consistent message of hope and recovery through God reliance and service to others through the practice and teachings of the 12 steps. We record all speakers so that others can benefit from their message of recovery. If you wish not to be recorded, simply ask. This is an open meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. The group would like to welcome everyone, especially newcomers. Is there anyone that's new here for the first time or visiting from out of town that would like to introduce themselves on a first name basis so we can welcome you? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
My name's Keith. I'm an alcoholic.
Keith. Welcome, Keith. Get everybody? Okay. The Conscious Contact Speaker Group encourages sponsorship. Would anyone with a working knowledge of the 12 steps and that is willing to sponsor, please raise your hands. Okay, so if you're new, if you're out there, grab one of those people after the meeting. Hopefully we can recommend some meetings for you, get you involved, get you into the solution a little bit. Are there any announcements from the floor for the good of AA? Nobody has anything? A couple quick announcements from this group. This group has a sister group, which is a big book study meeting that meets every Thursday, 7:30, just up the street here at Salem UCC Church. That's 186 East Court Street in Doylestown, and the coffee's on at 6:15. So again, feel free to show up early and join us. We have meeting lists and big books on easy terms. Please see me or any home group member after the meeting. If you cannot afford a big book, the Conscious Contact Speaker Group will give you one at no charge. Anyone willing to make donations for the purchase of big books or CDs to help those who cannot afford them can put their donations on that jar at the back table marked Big Book and CD donations. All CDs are available free of charge. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, the Conscious Contact Speaker Group of Doylestown. We have the speakers from this meeting on there. We also have speakers from our Monday night meeting at 6 p.m., which is a step discussion group. This group also has a Facebook page. It's a good resource to have. A lot of groups post happenings they have, anniversaries, celebrations, that kind of thing. So it's a good resource to have to stay tied in with events and happenings throughout the area in AA. And with that, I believe Sarah's going to come up here. She's going to read our Just for Today Prayer of Recovery.
I am Sarah and I'm an alcoholic. Hi. Just for today, prayer of recovery. Just for today, I will be agreeable. I will look as well as I can, dress becomingly, talk low, act courageously, criticize not one bit, not find fault with anything, and not try to improve or regulate anybody except myself. Now I'm going to welcome Carolyn to read the preamble. Welcome home.
Hi, my name is Carolyn and I am an alcoholic. Where is it? Oh, here it is. Okay, the AA Preamble. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organization, or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. And I've asked Andrew. I'm still an alcoholic.
Welcome home, everyone. My name's Andrew, and I'm an alcoholic. And these are the 12 steps of recovery. Number 1, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. 2, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. 5, admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. 6, we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. 7, humbly asked Him to remove our shortcomings. 8, made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. 9, made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. 10, continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. 12, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. Thank you.
Okay, 7 tradition, every A group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. At this time, we'll make sure the basket makes its way around. There's no dues or fees for AA membership, but we do have expenses, and your contributions help us to cover the cost of books, CDs, events, workshops. There's absolutely no smoking on the church property. It's the church's policy, not ours. Just be considerate of that as you're coming and going from the meeting. Wait till you leave. Please take a moment to silence all cell phones and limit movement during the meeting to avoid distractions. And now to introduce our speaker for tonight, a good friend of the Conscious Contact Speaker Group, on loan to us from the New Beginnings Group of South Philadelphia. Please help me welcome Dave.
Hello, I'm David. I'm an alcoholic. And thank you all for having me here to speak. I really appreciate it. It's good to see this many people out on a Saturday night at an AA meeting. And I'm glad to be here and hopefully get something out of my story. My last drink was 6 years, 9 months ago. And I drank for one day. I went to a bar. I was in San Francisco. I had just started a new job, maybe like 3-4 months before that. I was brought in as a new principal at a venture capital fund. This was like a big deal for me. My wife and I bought a brand new house in Philly when we got this job. And I was traveling for work a lot. And I think it was election day. It was the Trump-Clinton election. In San Francisco, everyone was really sad, so no one noticed when I just crawled into a bar and ordered a shot of Jameson and a beer and another beer, another shot of Jameson and a beer, and then a 6-pack to go. And that's how I drink. I don't know how to drink one. If I hadn't passed out because I was tired and I'm getting old, I probably would have gone out and gotten more and stayed up all night and gotten into all kinds of trouble. But the next day I got up and I did some work, and then I went to a meeting, and I didn't drink again. And hopefully I'll get into some of the reasons why. I didn't get this the first time. The first time I came in, the first time I ever went to an AA meeting, I was in a detox. I was 23 years old. I'm 50 now. And it's been a long journey, and a lot of stuff's happened, and my story's changed so much over the years, but I'm still grateful to be sober, and grateful to this group and God for my sobriety and everything that it's given me. So just to give a little bit of background and maybe to help, address like why I go out for one day and then don't drink again. Like why? Why not pick up the next day too? You may as well. I grew up in Wilmington, Delaware. If you're around my age, you may have, there was kids my age were allowed to kind of go out and do whatever they wanted. So I just remember being in a neighborhood in the city, a lot of other kids. Somebody would show up with like a backpack with 40s, and someone else had a backpack full of like Roman candles and 80s, and have a good time. It was like we kind of had free reign. We could do whatever we wanted. It wasn't a bad childhood. My mom and dad were really religious. I grew up Catholic. My mom adopted my sister and I. She had trouble having kids and had a daughter that lived only a few weeks, so she adopted us through Catholic Charities, and then later on had sons of her own. And I always felt less than, because my brothers were her natural kids and I wasn't. And that always affected me. It was just one of those things that made me feel like I'm different and I'm special and I have to be treated differently. And I internalized that and made a big deal about it, even though they were telling me they loved me and they were telling me that they chose me and that this should have meant a lot to me, but it didn't. What it meant to me when I was age 11 was that I was on my own. And, I acted like I was on my own. When I was 15, when I was 14, my parents put me in an institution. I was getting a lot of trouble at school. When I was 15, I just moved out of the house and got my own apartment. I ended up getting expelled from high school. My senior year, one of my best friends, Kevin, was murdered in Delaware. In Wilmington, they used to have these gangs where in order to join the gang, you'd have to commit a crime or usually a homicide. And so this 15-year-old kid shot my friend Kevin in the head while he was going into a liquor store. And I used that as a reason to drink more and do more drugs and do whatever I wanted. So I got expelled from school. I moved to Alaska, and I had kind of these years of just wandering around. I worked on a fishing boat, sat net fishing for halibut for the summer, made enough money, went up to Fairbanks, went down to school. I got into a college. I had enough credits to graduate, so even though I was expelled, I still had a diploma. I got into the school. I went there, and I didn't really feel like I fit in there. Most of the kids, their parents gave them credit cards to spend to go out, and I was, I had no money. I was broke. I got there. I sold my car to pay for the books and help out with first tuition payment. There was a guy next door to me. His dad owned a pharmaceutical distribution company. I guess, I'm like 17 or 18. I'm like, 18, 19 at this time. His dad owned a pharmaceutical distribution company, and so he had an unlimited supply of drugs, and so I started doing that too. And I really just kind of wandered around for a few years. From the time I was expelled from high school, moving to Alaska. I was in Alaska for about a year and a half. I lived down in North Carolina. I went to school. I moved back to Newark, Delaware when they kicked me out of that school because they realized that I was doing drugs. When I was living in Newark, Delaware, I was working at this bar called Klondike Kate's on Main Street, and I lived at a house that was across the street from Klondike Kate's. So I would work and I would drink, and I would go home and I'd drink some more, and we'd have a big party. And this is the first time I ever encountered anybody in AA or AA literature or anything like that. We got a new manager, and he seemed to be paying attention to me a lot, like asking questions about me. Why am I pulling so many double shifts? Why does Dave look so tired? Nosy. I didn't like that he was asking so many questions. So he came over to my house after work. We were having a party, so anybody's invited. But he came to the house, and I was, I was heads down doing a line of cocaine next to a 12-pack of Keystone Light, and I guess he kind of got the picture. And he left one of those little questionnaires next to my bedroom door. And I thought that was really rude. And I thought, like, who does this guy think he is? Like, he thinks he's really smart. And so I didn't read it that night, but the next day, I felt bad. I was hungover as usual. I hadn't had anything to drink yet, and I started reading these questions about, well, can you have one and stop? Like all these questions, and I started checking off the boxes in my mind and realizing that, okay, there might be something to this. Like, I'm not completely ignorant. There's got to be something to this. So I asked my roommate, and by the way, all my roommates are actually college students. I'm the only one there who doesn't go to college. I just live with college students because it's cheap rent. And the first day I moved in, they had to pick me up from lockup because I got in a fight at a bar. So they don't even want me living there. So, that will explain the tone with, this conversation with my roommate. I said to him, Greg, do you think I'm an alcoholic, or do you think I might be an alcoholic? And he just laughed, and he said, Dave, I don't know how to say this. Like, you're 2 months late on rent. You punched somebody at a party last week for no reason. Like, you just ran up and hit him. You you flirt with your best friend's girlfriend. I saw you do it at the party last night. Like, you're just a jerk. Like, you're actually just a bad person. And in addition to that, you're clever enough to come up with like this mysterious disease that like no one can actually prove that you have. Can you take a blood test? Can you take a DNA test and show me that you have this disease? No. But you've got this insane idea. You're going to come to me and tell me now that you have some special disease. And he's like, and this is just like you. You think you're special. Like, you think you get off the hook because you have like some unique quality about you that makes you unaccountable for your own actions. He's like, you're not an alcoholic, Dave, you're a jerk. Except he didn't say jerk. And that was good enough for me. I thought, okay, I'm not an alcoholic. I'll do it. I'll just keep doing what I'm doing. You know, like, okay, I swear I'll pay rent next month. Yeah, I'll get around to that. And you know, I went that way for a long time. Made a lot of just, you know, moves. I moved to Ocean City, Maryland, because I thought I could like just surf and wait tables and maybe I could quit drinking. But then I met a girl, and she was a cocaine dealer, and I was living with her, so I was running back and forth from Ocean City, Maryland to Baltimore so much to buy drugs that it just made more sense to just move to Baltimore. So, and move close to North Avenue where I was buying drugs anyway. And so that's where I ended up. And it's a long road. I mean, I hurt a lot of people's feelings. Like my mom, my dad, my brothers and sisters didn't want to talk to me. Nobody really wanted anything to do with me. And I'm leaving out a lot of pain that I caused people. A lot of people, yeah. And I had no way to pay them back. I had no way to fix anything. But anyway, I don't want to get into all the war stories because I think there's a lot to talk about here. So I'll tell you how I ended up coming to the rooms. Is like so many things, I just had a really, really bad day. And I feel like God knows that I'm stubborn and that usually things sink in after someone has just given me a thorough beating, like a physical beating. And so at the time I used to have a Mazda hatchback, and I started it with a screwdriver in the ignition. And it was a stick, so it was tricky to get it going. And I was in Baltimore, and I got up, you know, I'm bringing up, there's some drug stuff here, like I was waking up early and I'm sick with withdrawal. So it's important that I get in my car and I go do what I gotta do so that I can go to Home Depot and get my paycheck and then do more of what I need to do. So this is like, I got a schedule, guys. So I'm up early and I gotta, you know, I gotta do my job. And so I get in the car, a woman stops me outside, and she lives 2 doors down, and I've never met her before. She knocks on the window, and she says, I don't know you, but I just want you to know that Jesus loves you very, very much, more than you could ever possibly know. And I said, you're letting the air conditioning out. And I rolled my window. And it didn't make any sense to me. I don't know why a stranger would say that to me. I don't know why anybody would think to say something like that to me. But there's like a few encounters in my life where that, you know, they kind of unfold over time and have more meaning as time goes on. I don't know why she did that. I got in the car and I drove to a gas station to put, you know, $2.50 cash into my, because I don't want to spend the money that I need to buy drugs, so I just put enough in the car to get downtown and to Home Depot. You guys got the itinerary, you know the agenda. So I'm on my way to Home Depot. That's where I'm going, right? First, I got to get gas. So I stop at the gas station, and somebody calls out to me by my last name, which is always like a bad thing. And it was somebody, I don't know how I offended him, but he was much bigger than me. And at that time, I weighed 135 pounds, so I really wasn't going to put up much of a defense anyway. So I jump in the car, and I try to start it to get away, because he's coming to beat me up, I can tell. You can tell by the look on his face, like he wants to beat me up. So he's coming at me, and he hits me, and he gets me again in the face. I'm thinking I'm gonna like lose consciousness, and this is trouble, and finally the car starts, and I take off and rip the hose off of the gas pump, which, don't worry, it's got that little ball in it, in the valve that blocks it, so it's not like gas is pouring everywhere. I just took the hose with me, no problems. Like, no, didn't start a fire or anything, it was okay. Everything turned out okay. I went to my girlfriend's house to to show her, my face was swollen. He had punched my eyes shut, basically. I couldn't see out of it, so I was like kind of driving with one eye. And I go to her mom's house, because that's where she was, and her mom comes running out and says, "Don't you ever come here again. I don't want you around my daughter." And I'm just like, "Oh, you're a coke dealer daughter? I'm not good enough now for the, like this." So I felt like I achieved like a new low now. Like nobody wants me around. And I got in the car. I went to Home Depot. They didn't like the looks on my face, and it turns out they didn't have my paycheck anyway. So it's just a bad day. It's just like a really bad day. I put the rest of the money in the gas tank and I drove back to Delaware. And I went to go talk to my parents for the first time in probably 6 years. So I knocked on the door. This is back before like cell phones. They had moved to a new house. It wasn't the house I grew up in. I knock on the door. My mom answers the door. She says, "Absolutely not." Shuts the door. And I'm walking back to the car, and she comes out. And she's like, "Okay, wait a minute. Your dad wants you to come in." So my dad had just had a heart attack a few weeks before that. I didn't know that. He was scared that he might never see me again. So he wanted me to come in. I said, "I just need to spend the night for one night." I called the detox, and they don't have any beds. And if you just let me spend the night tonight, I'll go there tomorrow. I promise I'll go to detox tomorrow. My mom said, "You can stay here, but we're putting you in the basement, and we're going to padlock the door so you don't get out in the middle of the night and steal stuff from us." And I said, "Okay." And this is not like a finished basement. I'm not complaining. I'm just saying it's not a finished basement. This is not nice. There's just like a mattress on the floor. And I was sad. I saw like pictures of my brothers and sisters on the wall. I saw pictures of me when I was in grade school. Saw pictures of us at church, my first Holy Communion, when I was an altar boy. Walking past all these things as I'm being like directed down to the basement where I'm going to sleep on a mattress. And I laid there, and the first time I remember in a long time just making a sincere prayer to God, I asked him to just take my life. And what I meant was to kill me. Like, don't let me wake up. I can't do this again. This is too humiliating, and I've clearly messed everything up, and I'm never going to get back. And God took it literally, and he took my life. I woke up the next day, and first of all, I fell asleep. I never fall asleep. I usually be up pacing around, trying to figure out a scam where like somebody can like maybe deliver drugs to the basement window at my parents' house, smoke signals or something to a drug dealer. I went to sleep. I gave up. Like I had a real moment there where I surrendered. And the next day I woke up. I told my mom and dad that I'm an alcoholic and a drug addict, and I'm sorry for everything. Can you drive me to the detox? So they took me to the detox, and I was willing to just do whatever's next. I went to my first AA meeting in detox, and I still had a lot to learn here. I didn't know what an AA meeting was. I didn't understand the forum. Much like today, I didn't understand that there was a dress code. I'm just kidding about the dress code. I didn't know, and I didn't understand how it worked. These two women, God bless them, came in to tell their stories to this pack of people, sitting in the break room at the Kirkwood Detox in Wilmington, Delaware. They came in, and one woman was telling just this heart-wrenching story about how she left her son on a playground, got in a car, and went on a run, and never came back to pick him up. And I kept thinking, like, that's terrible. But I'm also thinking, I haven't done anything that bad, And again, I didn't understand the form. I kept raising my hand while she was talking and asking like another probing question, like just to follow up on the banning the kid in the playground thing. Can you just clarify that for me? Like, did you come back eventually, or was it like a 2-week run? Like, have you seen him since? And the second time I interrupted, she said, "Can I just say, like, with all due respect, you're not even wearing pants, right?" Like, because I'm wearing 2 hospital gowns and I'm sitting in a chair eating these like cheese and crackers with, my like grape juice from the machine in the back. Like, who am I to question anything? I don't know anything, right? I got no degree. I got expelled from high school. My parents don't want anything to do with me, but I heard somebody who did something that I think is worse than what I've done. And so now all of a sudden I've got something to say. Humility took a long time for me. Like I would need a long time to get humility. I was insufferable. I had a lot of opinions. You know, I don't put too much stock in this kind of thing, but somebody took me one time to one of these shops that has these like new age spirituality books, and they have that thing that's like the secret language of birthdays. It's like you read your birthday and it tells you all about yourself. And I'm just saying, my birthday is the day of the unsolicited opinion. And they're like, this could be real. Like, I mean, this is like a perfectly good description of me. I have opinions about everything, but I didn't know anything. And I relied on myself, and my own will and my own knowledge and everything that I did got me exactly where I was, which is a Kirkwood detox. I got sober, I got clean. I met my wife in AA eventually. She had a similar story to mine, and we met because one of her sponsor called me up and said that she wasn't answering the phone and that they had knocked on her window and she hadn't been answering, and that maybe I should stop by the house and just knock on there and see if she'll answer the door for me. And so I did, and I went inside, and she was there with her tank top and bleeding out of one of her eyes. Somebody had punched her because she tried to rip off a drug dealer, and I thought, I'm gonna marry that woman someday. We did eventually get married years later. I proposed to her, and the first people we told were our home group in 19th and Walnut in Philadelphia. We walked up there and told everyone, and they stood outside, and they congratulated us. You know, being sober, like, I felt like miracles happened. Like, it's a long way from a partner at a venture capital fund, from, you know, no pants at the detox, and a lot happened. I felt like I was just kind of walking. I started like going to talks on robotics because I thought it was interesting while I was getting sober. I was waiting tables, like, it was just interesting to me. I had a professor come up to me one day at Drexel and asked me if I was interested in joining his lab as a graduate student. I said, I'm not an undergrad, like, I'm a 27-year-old freshman at the community college. And he said, well, you come by the lab tomorrow and you're going to be a professor someday. And I went to the lab and did my undergrad at Drexel. I ended up getting my PhD in electrical engineering. My wife got her master's degree in electrical engineering. She had a similar story, if not worse than mine. And this is honestly, like, I want to just pause here for a moment about like the job and the school. Like, it was remarkable, and for years I sat in rooms and told everybody, like, look at the fruits of my sobriety. Like, look, this is the fruits of being sober, and it's not. Like, I would give away all that stuff in a heartbeat to keep the freedom and like the liberation that I have because I'm sober and because there's a God in my life today. Like, that stuff is not the fruits. It was amazing that it happened, but it didn't have to happen. It just did. So that gets me to San Francisco. So I got my big fancy job now. We now have a house. My daughters are in second grade. They're in some fancy private school. We had identical twin daughters, June and Parker, 2 years after we got married. And you know, we were happy, but you know, my wife's mom died. She died of cancer, so she was drinking. I was alone. I was in San Francisco. Why, you know, my wife's drinking anyway, so why should I stay sober? So I drank. But the reason why I didn't drink the next day is because what had changed in my life over the years was that I was free. I was free in my mind and in my physical actions. There was a time where I absolutely could not have resolved to not drink. I would wake up in the morning, I'd say, I'm not going to drink today, but I would do it anyway. And I know people who are not alcoholics, and they can do that with anything in their life, it seems, except for some really tough things that may happen to them. My boss is like this, you know. She's an optimist. She believes that the good things are going to happen. And if they don't happen, she believes that she can always see the positive side of it. She's an optimistic person. She sees the bright side in everything. I couldn't bright side my way to sobriety. I couldn't bright side my way off of heroin. That was not going to happen. Gratitude lists were not going to get me sober. I needed God to take my life. That's what it took for me. And that's, I can't live any other way except to be, in God's hands. And that's what I learned in the rooms. An awful lot of the first 165 pages of the big book are telling me that I'm truly an alcoholic and I have this disease, and they explain what it means and what that is, and also that there is a God. I'm good. I actually don't care if Greg is right and alcoholism isn't a real thing. I don't care. Whatever happened to me that day on the mattress saved my life, and it's come other times in my life since then. And I don't care what alcoholism is. I know that I'm powerless over alcohol. Like step one, not a problem for me. But I don't really care what the disease is. I know it's nature. I know that I cannot just simply do worksheets and express gratitude and I'm miraculously not going to drink. I needed to change my mind. And many of you probably have this experience where your life, when you're an alcoholic, collapses down to a very small world. Every day I think about what I'm going to do and make sure that I'm close enough to a place where I can drink so that I can get my next drink. I also don't have much imagination about anything else because I'm so constrained. I don't know if any of you guys have ever seen Anchorman, but there's a scene in Anchorman, there's this weatherman named Brick. He's really stupid. And Ron Burgundy says, "What do you love, Brick?" And he says, "I love lamp." And he's like, "Are you just naming things in the office that you love?" And he's like, "No, I love lamp." And the thing is, he's asked, "What do you love? What do you desire? What does your heart want?" And the only thing he can recommend is the things that he sees in front of him. That's my life as an alcoholic. I don't know what to want. I don't know how to desire. My heart is completely deformed because my brain is distraught. I don't know how to think. And so, even though God saved me from drinking more, I still have this brain that's arguing with women who are telling me a story at the detox. I think I know things, and I don't know anything. And so I had to unlearn an awful lot. And this is in the steps. So I'll just say 1, 2, and 3 were good. I did that on the mattress, okay? I asked God to take my life, He took my life. I'm good with that. I'm good with God. I have no problem with that. I also now, after a brief stint in detox now, understand that I'm insane and that I can be restored to sanity. There's hope, right? But the hope isn't the kind of hope that my boss has. My boss has a belief, she has faith that things will always work out because she's confident in herself. That's not faith though, that's confidence in herself. I can't live on that. I can't stay sober on knowledge of my own abilities to do things. I need something more than that. So the first thing I have to do is I have to clear my head because it's full of broken ideas. And to write them down in a 4-step was the first time I ever saw just how broken it was. I was resentful at everybody, including, the principal who expelled me. I was mad at my parents. I was mad at my mother, my biological mother, my adopted mother, all the mothers. I was mad at everybody. And a lot of people I was resentful of or was angry with. I was angry with them because they hurt my pride. That 4th column, you start talking about what it affects. Pride was all the way down the list for me. For all of them, it just really hurt my feelings. It hurt my pride. It made me feel like I wasn't an important person that anybody cared about. And I didn't know this at the time. I just wrote it down, told it to my sponsor, told it to God. I didn't know this at the time, but there was a way to become free. That was another prison I was in, which is the freedom to not care about what anybody else thinks once I trust my higher power and what He thinks is what's really important. It is a fact, it's a statement of fact, that I've had a spiritual awakening today. One of the reasons I know is because I am free to consider what is the good and right thing to do without having to worry about what anybody else thinks about it. But the other freedom that comes from that, also, and I'm just going to jump a little bit, comes in the 8th step, because now I can forgive people. Forgiveness for me was an obstacle because if I forgave someone for doing me wrong, that meant that I was a sucker. That hurt my pride. I let somebody get away with something against me. I let them show that I'm not a tough guy, I'm not a real man, because they stole from me, or they lied to me, or they cheated me. But now, if I don't really care what anybody else thinks, that's not a problem. I don't care. And so I can get to this point where I can now forgive people when they don't even deserve forgiveness. Because that's what I got. I didn't deserve any of this, right? So I'm doing the 4th and 5th with my sponsor, and I'm seeing all these things in pride. And what was amazing is that, like, eventually, I was going to knock those columns out that say pride. Anything that said pride in the 4th column, I was going to alleviate that eventually. And I don't want to go through, like, every single step, but I do want to say that there's some pivotal steps here that change this for me, and that is 6 and 7. 6 and 7 makes an extraordinary statement, which is that I can ask God to remove my shortcomings. That's like a radical statement. I can ask God to just remove them, just lift them from me. And I didn't know what that meant, but I'd seen enough that I would believe it, right? Again, when I say believe, not believe in myself, I believe in my higher power. And I had pride, and I had a lack of humility, and I told lies because I wanted people to like me. And so many of the things that I did that were wrong and that I felt low self-esteem about, I was doing because I wanted someone else to like me. I was trying to fashion in their minds a narrative about me. And I spent a lot of time doing that. 6 and 7 propose that you can now change your life, that I could change my life in a way where instead of being self-oriented, focusing on what I want and my own needs and self, that I could focus more on God's will, right? Which sounds, to a young guy who like just got out of detox, really boring, right? But as I got older, I had a wife, I have a family, it was a key to freedom for me. And it's a key to freedom because of the fact that every time I pay attention to what I want all the time, I am locked in to this. We talk about how like our expectations are what create that anxiety. Like you can't be disappointed if you don't have expectations. But if all my plans are just to make me comfortable in the next year, maybe I'll get a bigger house, maybe I'll get a newer truck, something like that, I'm going to be disappointed. And even if I get what I want, I'm probably not going to be very happy about it. But I'm free, and I can have a much freer imagination if I leave that aside and I set aside what I want and I start thinking about what God wants me to do. That, even though it sounds like I'm constraining my life, is paradoxically freeing. 6 and 7 were an enormous pivot for me. I became a full-grown adult. And my life began to open up in a way where I can now imagine, well, what can I do for other people? And that's where we start getting into, when we do the 8th and 9th, one of the things we have to identify is how we're going to live in the real world. What are we going to do about all these other people? So I got me figured out now. I know the secrets of not getting beat up at gas stations. Like, good for me. I got it, Like, I don't have all these answers, but like, I know how to like not pick up, and I know how to not be my own worst enemy and to like make a jail that I'm going to live in for myself. I know how to do that. But now what about all these other people? I went on my home group for a while was this home group called Gratitude. We used to do a step every month. So, January step 1, February step 2, and so forth. And I remember we were doing the 8th step where we had to make a list. And I did it, I had 10 days of silence to think about this. And in the 8th step, it talks about not just the people that you harmed, but all of the people in your relationships. And it like dawned on me thinking and writing this out that I have had for most of my life a struggle to try to identify who I am. Like, who is David? What is David like? Is David liberal? Is David conservative? Like, what is my identity? And then when someone, crashes against my identity, we're enemies. Like that I don't want to live that way anymore. What I really am, a good description of my life and who I am, if someone says, who is David? David is a son, he is a father, he is a husband, he's an employee, he's a friend, he's a neighbor. That's who I am, right? That's how I define myself. I don't have to get in a big fight with anybody about this. This is like indisputable fact. These are my relationships. They define who I am now. And so in the 8th step, what I'm doing is I'm thinking about, am I a good neighbor? Am I a good son? Am I a good father? Am I a good husband? Am I a good employee? Am I a good employer? And so forth and so on. And that was a really rewarding exercise for me. You know, the amends that I had to make from my early days were all just money. Like, no one really wanted to hear about why I did what I did, you know? I sent checks to people. But what was really important about the 8th and 9th step for me was to understand how this network of relationships, which defines my life here, whether or not, like, how to, like, go back and ask myself if I'm doing a good job in each of these relationships. So that gets us to, you know, what I think is, let me go. I think I was going to read something from one of these steps here. Just give me 1 second. I have to put on my reading glasses because I just turned 50. Sorry. Sorry. So in step 10, there are things now where I have to get honest about on a daily basis that I never would have considered in the past. I used to do things like steal from my mother. That's pretty clear that's wrong, right? But there are some things that I felt bad about, and I wasn't sure if I had like clearly identified why I felt bad. I'll give you an example. I'm at work, and this, you know, I was working at a defense contractor as an engineer. There's a guy who likes to talk a lot. Usually what he's saying is nonsense. He's a smart guy. He just, like, when he gets nervous, he just likes to talk too much. And he's doing his thing where he's talking too much, and across the table there is someone who's a superior to me. He can do things for me if he's my friend. And I share with him a knowing glance, like, yeah, I know, he talks a lot. Like, I didn't say it, but we had like a little moment there. Like, an easy way for me to make a good friend is to you know, gossip about somebody else. And I would have been fine with that. Like, how is that a bad thing? But I'm driving home and I keep thinking that I shared this like knowing glance with a manager who now knows that if he didn't think before that this guy is irresponsible and not worthy of a promotion, I have at least emphasized to him what he could believe, right? So like, I've literally, like, it's character assassination by a knowing glance. I didn't say anything, though, right? But like these little things when I sit down at night and I have to like review the day, I wasn't okay with them anymore. So like, it's not like I went to step 10 saying like, okay, let me be scrupulous and thorough. It's that my heart now is doing a lot more of the discerning because my brain has been told to shut up because it doesn't know anything. That's where I got with 6 and 7. That's where I'm looking more about my relationships with other people. So now I can't ignore how important the relationships are. And I am now more interested in God's will than my own. And so now I got to drive home and feel bad because of this glance that I did across a table because this guy said something. And it's like, this is a bummer, right? But like, this is the path of liberation. This is how I become free. I become free by being able to discern when I've done something wrong without having to like think about it with my mind. Because again, my mind isn't that good. It's not reliable. I now have to rely on something else for that. And that's the feeling. It's my conscience. And I can trust it now because it's not being subverted at every turn by my brain that is constantly saying that it knows everything. I know everything. I know everything. I don't know anything. And I trust this, you know, with my heart and soul now. So I have a lot to say about 11 and 12. Before I do that, let me just sort of bring up the, to like sort of present time. A little over 8 months ago, my wife Renee and my daughters, all 3 of them died in a car accident. There was a drunk driver decided to make a U-turn on 495 and drove his F-150 into them head on. I was out giving a talk in DC. I was sleeping when it happened. Sorry. Next day I get woken up by the police. They tell me what happened. You know, I can't believe it, right? And it feels like he's like talking to me in another language. And the police leave, and I go upstairs, punch a door jamb, cry, and then I just felt like I felt God take my life again. And it felt like beautiful and awful at the same time, because I like really felt helpless here. But I haven't drank. And the reason why I didn't drink is for the same reason I didn't drink in San Francisco, which is that despite the fact that I've lost everything to me, important to me, and I'm like ready to, you can take my career, you can have the money, you can have the I don't care about any of those things. I am free today. My life is big as a result of the relationship I have with my family. It is big. Like I know they're with me, but that's not the only thing. Like I know that like this life is so much bigger than just my own wants and desires and the things I want to do to make me feel comfortable. That is not what I'm here for. And that's new to me. When I think about prayer, and prayer is really important to me now, I think about prayer the way we used to do this thing on Saturday. We used to do Dadder Days. For me and the girls would go out and do something. They had to do something that they were afraid to do. They had to do something brave, and they had to learn something new. So they would take them surfing or make them like walk through a cave that they were scared of. And my daughters were 14 when they died, so they were teenagers. And during COVID, I worked at home, and so I would hear kind of their social interactions with their friends on the phone from up in my office. And I heard Parker say, she was talking to a friend, it's a 14-year-old girl. Her friend said, what about Saturday? And she said, no, I'm sorry, I can't do Saturdays because that's Dadder Day. And you feel like, oh my God, like, I cannot believe, like, she wants to still hang out with her dad. That's what I think about with prayer. So much of this program for me has been a reorientation of my attention and where it goes. Attention used to be for myself. All the attention was on me. Then I oriented it toward God. Prayer for me is when I put my thoughts with God in a way that like he feels the love I felt when I heard my daughter saying she doesn't want to hang out with her friends on a Saturday. He has my undivided attention for a moment. It's not what I say or the prayers that I give. Like that prayer meditation for me is to try to recreate that moment with God. And it is about attention. Like I do think that what he wants is my full and undivided attention. I didn't ask for much from my daughters, but that was like huge. I think about things from a father perspective now. A couple things happened to me after the accident, and I just want to share them because I think about them every day, and it's really like changed my perspective on the 12 step. So as I mentioned, I grew up Catholic. My wife was, she was a convert to Catholicism. We got married, and so she did a lot of stuff with the church. She went to church every day. She prayed every day. And she was really good friends with this priest, Father Tim. And Father Tim did the funeral, called me up a week later and said, hey, he's a chaplain at Dartmouth College now. So he has to take students around to these different missions. And so he was going to do a mission in Mexico City with a bunch of Dartmouth students with Mother Teresa sisters. Maybe you've heard of her. But like the idea is that you're serving like the poorest of the poor, children who are severely disabled, like cannot eat in their mouths. They have to like be fed through a tube. And he said, this I think would do you some good to get out of the house. And so why don't you come with me? So my sister-in-law and I went down there, and I'm grateful for her for going because I don't speak Spanish. We went and we worked at the mission every day. And I didn't tell anybody about the accident because everybody treated me differently. But Father Tim did speak with a woman she's an older woman, and her son was 42 and was just killed a month before. He was a missionary, and someone stabbed him for like 5 pesos or something like that. So she had just had a loss. So Father Tim says to her, this is what happened to my friend David. Would you pray for him? I know that you understand like what he's going through. And she didn't even look at me, and she says to him in Spanish, I'll pray for him if he's ready to receive prayer. And she's like, otherwise, like I don't want to waste my time. Which again, I thought that was rude. you know? And she says, I have 3 things to say to him, and if he wants to hear it, you know, you can translate, okay? So the 3 things she says to me are, number 1, you are here by invitation only. Like, you're not dead. There's something that you're supposed to be doing. Number 2, you're a father, and you'll always be a father. There's like some role for you to play. And number 3, and I don't want to make too much of a point of this, but I do want to say, like, this is the one that I keep thinking about every day. She said, surround yourself with holy people. What she meant by that was not that, I mean, yeah, she meant like go hang out with Father Tim. I get it. But she also meant what she said, actually, not what she meant. She said, you've been touched, and you can always go back to being normal again if you want. You can go be comfortable. Like, you can find a way to go be comfortable, or you can surround yourself with people whose thoughts are also with God. That's what you can do. And so I like to surround myself with people whose thoughts are with God. It doesn't matter what your religion is. We do this in AA. We come to AA. There's very few people that I know, their religious thoughts or their thoughts on God or their perspectives on prayer, but I know your stories about that. Like, I know what you say about that because we talk about it here. Like, this is what I do. There's one other story, really quick, and this is directly related to 12. Father Tim also thought it would be good if I went with him to a last rites. He was, last rites is when you give final prayers before someone is about to die. And so we went to this man's house. He was an elderly man. He may have been in his 90s, late 80s, I don't know. He had a really small house, like it was cramped like his foot was touching my leg because there wasn't enough room for all of us to stand in the room. Father Tim was saying prayers over him, and it was one of Teresa's sisters. She's probably in her 30s, young woman from Argentina. She's in there too. And he says the prayers. And then there's this like light conversation where like the family is telling stories about him when he was younger, and here's a picture of him when he was young and, muy guapo and all this stuff. And the sister interrupts him and says, what are you going to do when you get to heaven? To the guy who's laying in bed. And he says, he's like barely audible. This man's going to be dead by morning. He's barely audible, and he says, I don't know, I haven't thought of that yet. And she's like, well, what are you waiting for? And I'm like, all right, why don't you settle down there, sister? Like, this is like getting uncomfortable for me. Like, I'm like in the corner, his foot's touching my leg. Like, I don't like this. So he says, I don't know, I guess I'll polish the stars, which like sounds cute, but that annoys her. And she says, that's not a real job. I'm like, oh my God, just please let this man die. Like, why are you doing this? And she gets serious with him, and she says, you're going to be in a position tomorrow to help people in a way that you've never been able to help anyone in your life. And I want you to think about what you're going to do first thing when you pass. I'm not here to talk about the afterlife. What I'm here to talk about is that like the 12th step gives me a purpose. It gives me a reason to keep going. I have something to do. There's always work to be done. That man smiled when she said that. And he probably spent his last hours laying there thinking about actual people he was really going to help the next day. And I have that too. I have had so many encounters with the people in AA. Because, my friends and neighbors and the people in AA have come to me, and we all suffer loss. And they all miss my wife too. Like Renee. Renee was a better person than me. And they all miss her a lot, and sometimes they can't even hide the fact they miss her. They wish it wasn't her. But to have a purpose that is not selfish, not self-oriented, tied to God's will on this earth, means that I still live a very big life, and I am free in a way that I've never been before I came to these rooms. And so, look, I've had really tragic stuff happen. Every time I get punched in the face or beaten up or like ask God to take my life, he doesn't. I don't know. But like, I do know that there have been people, a woman in Baltimore who told me that Jesus loved me so much more than I could ever understand. My first sponsor, who got frustrated with me, but he tried. The second one who also got frustrated. I remember I had a lot of humbling. Like, these people all had encounters with me, and those encounters have been unfolding ever since the day I met them. And that final unfolding will be on my deathbed when I'm thinking about how I can help the next people. I definitely can't say I live in the 11th and 12th step. Like prayer and encounters with other alcoholics is my life, you know, for now. And I wouldn't have it any other way. And I really am grateful to all of you. I'm grateful that you had me out here to come and speak. And, you know, I'm happy to surround myself with holy people. Thank you for letting me share.
All right, first and foremost, I want to thank David for coming to our group tonight and delivering an incredible message of hope. As I said before the meeting, the food and the fellowship for this group starts at 8 o'clock every week. Feel free to show up early, enjoy the coffee and refreshments we put out. If you want to get involved with some service with this group, we appreciate it. I also forgot to mention before the meeting, this group has a running commitment at a treatment center in Quakertown on Sunday nights. If you're interested in that, you can see me or a home group member after the meeting. There's no requirement for time or anything. If you just want to get involved with some people in early sobriety, it's a good opportunity to be of service. There's always a meeting after the meeting, so feel free to hang out, grab somebody after the meeting. If you want to help us with some service work and help put away the chairs, we could always use some help with that. It's customary for us to thank our speakers as they come here on their own time and expense, so we usually form a line in the front here and thank our speakers. But thanks to everybody for helping out with the meeting tonight. Thanks to our readers, our greeters. Thanks to our coffee maker. And let's give one more round of applause to our speaker, David. If you do care to join us, we have a nice way of closing. We'll close down the meeting with a brief moment of silence for the still sick and suffering alcoholic inside and outside of these rooms, followed by our Lord's Prayer. Our Father,